होगा शुरू। अब देखो आ गया होगा, स्टार्ट कर दिया मैंने, कर दिया। हेलो, कर दिया मैंने सौम्य ऑफिशियल। माय प्लेजर। अभी आज का लाइव बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है गाइस, बहुत इंटेंस, बहुत पावरफुल। बने रहिएगा। आज आवाज़ आ रही है मेरी, बताइए गाइस। तो आज का लाइव बहुत इंटेंस होने वाला है। टुडे आई एम गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट ऋषि दुर्वासा। एकदम मस्त हुई। निकुंज भाई तुम कैसे हो? आज बस सुनना, आज मैं बड़े सालों बाद अपने मोड में आया हूँ। एक ग्रीन स्क्रीन में बहुत चौड़ा आ गया, इसका साइज़ लेना पड़ेगा मुझे। ग्रीन स्क्रीन का क्या लेते हैं? आज का लाइव स्पेशल है क्योंकि आज मैं दुर्वासा ऋषि जी के बारे में पढ़ूंगा। ट्राई करूंगा हिंदी अनुवाद भी उनका हाथों हाथ पेश करूं आपको। और निकुंज कैसे हो आप? आवाज़ आ रही है मेरी निकुंज? कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरये परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेशनाशाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। मुझे इसका साइज़ देखना पड़ेगा, इसका ग्रीन स्क्रीन का साइज़ क्या होता है, तभी मैं उसका पोस्टर उसके हिसाब से लाइव के बनाया करूँगा। क्या हुआ है निकुंज, क्या हुआ तबीयत को? अरे हनुमान जी का जाप करो, नज़र नज़र लगती है मंदिर में, जाके झाड़ा करवा लो। सारी वॉचिंग कहाँ चलेगी? 6 की वॉचिंग थी, 3 लोग रह गए। चले गाइस, मैं शुरू कर रहा हूँ स्टोरी। लोग स्टोरी सुनने आए थे और चले गए। तो मेजरली कंटेंट मेरा इंग्लिश में रहता है, मैं मोर कंफर्टेबल इन इंग्लिश, बट आई ट्राई टू ट्रांसलेट इट ऑल्सो। आप वो लो, क्या बोल, डोलो, एक मेडिसिन आती है डोलो, वो खा के सो जाओ, और गरम दूध हल्दी के साथ। मेरा नेट सही चल रहा है गाइज? मेरा लाइफ सही चल रहा है? इतना बता दीजिएगा मुझे, बिकॉज़ मैं देख नहीं पा रहा हूँ अपने एंड से बिल्कुल भी। मेरा वाईफाई ऑन है, मुझे देखने दो, वाईफाई मेरा ऑन है। तो लेट्स स्टार्ट विद द स्टोरी। दुर्वासा ऋषि। Durvasa Rishi is one of the most famous and formidable sages, rishis in Hindu tradition. दुर्वासा ऋषि जो हैं बहुत ही फेमस ऋषि रह चुके हैं, बहुत ही फेमस ऋषि हैं पुराने सेजेस में। तो Durvasa Rishi is one of the most famous and formidable sages in the Hindu tradition, especially in the Mahabharata, Purana and the Puranas. He is remembered for extraordinary tapas, spiritual powers, and very quick temper. वो बहुत ही शॉर्ट टेम्पर्ड थे, बहुत अखंड तप करते थे, उसके लिए बड़े मशहूर थे, और उनके श्राप के लिए बहुत मशहूर थे। उनके पास बहुत ताकत थी, बहुत स्पिरिचुअल पावर्स थी, उसके लिए बहुत मशहूर थे। His curses his shapas, and his vardanas often had major consequences for kings, gods, and heroes. One of the one important point, there is no single universal agreed list of all his curses and boons. Different Puranas, regional traditions, latter texts, and retelling content, additional stories, and some accounts conflict. So, what we are going to talk about will give you a detailed, it will give you a consolidated list of major and commonly cited episodes while distinguishing the better attested stories and latter traditions. तो ट्रेडिशंस के बेस पे हम ये करेंगे. सो स्टार्टिंग विद हु was Durvasa Rishi. Durvasa is described as the son of Rishi Atri and Anasuya. He is also associated with an aspect or manifestation of Shiva's fierce nature, which is often used to explain his intense temper. दुर्वासा ऋषि जो थे वो ऋषि अत्रि और अनुसुया के पुत्र थे, एंड ही वॉज ऑल्सो अ फियर्स मैनिफेस्टेशन ऑफ लॉर्ड शिवा. सो वो शिव के भी एक फियर्स मैनिफेस्टेशन थे. His name Durvasa is commonly interpreted in connection with someone who is difficult to live with. He wandered from place to place, performing austerities and testing people, especially their hospitality, humility, patience, and adherence to Dharma. Give me a second, I'll put on the subscriber mode, which I actually forgot. Subscribers, duration 20 minutes. Bravo. On the spot. His anger was feared because his tapas gave tremendous potency to his words. However, Durvasa was not simply an angry sage. Many stories show him rewarding sincere service with extraordinary powerful blessings. So then we'll go to the birth and about Durvasa. I don't see people. The most important account is found in the Bhagavad Purana and related Puranic traditions. After Atri married Anasuya, Brahma instructed him to participate in the creation and population of the world. Atri and Anasuya went to Raksa mountain region to perform severe austerities. Atri performed extraordinary tapasya. According to the Bhagavata tradition, he stood on one leg for 100 years, controlling his breath and concentrating his mind upon the Supreme Being. The intensity of his austerity became so great that a blazing spiritual energy emanated from him. Atri's desire was essentially, may I receive a son who is like the Supreme Lord. His meditation was directed towards the Supreme Reality rather than towards an ordinary worldly reward. Because Atri had invoked the Supreme Being, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva appeared before him. Atri was surprised because he had meditated upon one supreme reality, yet three great deities had appeared. The explanation given in the Puranic tradition is profound. Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva represented different aspects of the one supreme reality. They therefore granted Atri and Anasuya a blessing that their sons would manifest portions of the three divine powers. The three sons of Atri and Anasuya. From the divine blessing came three extraordinary sons. From Brahma came Soma, Chandra. From Vishnu came Dattatreya. From Durvasa came Shiva and Rudra. The Shiva Purana specifically says that the portion of Shiva was born as Durvasa, while the portion of Brahma and Vishnu manifested as Soma and Dattatreya. जो ऋषि ब्रह्मा के अंश से जन्मे उनका नाम था सोमा और चंद्र, सोमा या चंद्र। जो विष्णु के तत्व से जन्मे उनका नाम था दत्तात्रेय, और दुर्वासा ऋषि शिव तत्व से जन्म हुआ था। This is why Durvasa is sometimes described as Rudra's manifestation rather than simply an ordinary human being. इसलिए दुर्वासा को रुद्रा की मैनिफेस्टेशन बोला जाता है rather than a simple human being. Another account of Shiva's anger. There is another and very famous explanation for why Durvasa was so extraordinarily quick-tempered. According to Brahmanda Purana tradition, there was an episode in which Shiva became intensely enraged. The god became frightened by Shiva's fury. Parvati, concerned about Shiva's terrible anger, asked him to restrain it. Shiva's anger was then deposited into Anasuya, wife of Atri. From the divine portion of Shiva's anger, Durvasa was born. This explains his name and temperament. He was understood as carrying a portion of Rudra's fierce energy. So, symbolically, Shiva's fierce energy transferred to Anasuya gave birth to Durvasa. This is one reason Durvasa's anger is so powerful in the stories. His anger is not merely ordinary human temper, it is associated with Rudra, Shiva, cosmic energy. The third account from the Vamana Purana. Vaman Purana. There is an even more unusual version. According to Vaman Puran, Shiva was involved in a conflict with Brahma and eventually sought the help of the sage Narada. In this account, Shiva pierced his hand with his trident and 3 streams of blood emerged. One of those streams became associated with the birth of Durvasa. This is a completely different symbolic description of his manifestation. Yet another account from the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata also contained a distinctive explanation. In the Anushasana Prava, Durvasa is associated with Shiva's manifestation during the destruction of Tripura. According to the accounts, According to the account, Shiva's powerful arrow, after destroying the Tripuras, took the form of a child and returned to Shiva. The child was named Durvasa. This reinforces the same basic theological idea. Durvasa, a manifestation of Shiva, Rudra's extraordinary power. There is, where was he born? This is another point where we should distinguish scriptures and modern pilgrimage traditions. The text generally tells us that Durvasa was born to Atri and Anusuya, but they do not provide a universal as accepted geographical coordination or modern city that can be identified with certainty as his birthplace. Atri and Anusuya are associated with several different hermitage and sacred regions. One important tradition places Atri and Anusuya tapasya in the region around Chitrakoot. Excuse me. The Shiva Purana, for example, describes a forest called Kamada near Chitrakoot, where Atri and Anusuya perform severe penance. There are also latter local traditions identifying various places as Durvasa Ashram or his tapasya sthal. These should not these should not automatically be described as his historical proven birthplace. Therefore, if you look at the spiritual parentage, it's Atri and Anusuya. Divine identity, it's his manifestation of Lord Shiva. Extraordinary birth year. Exact birth year, there's no historical account. And exact birthplace, not definitely identified, but it's said to be somewhere around Chitrakoot. Important associated regions, according to tradition, is Chitrakoot and other ancient hermitage sites. Why is he called Durvasa? The name Durvasa is traditionally connected with the idea of someone who is difficult to live with or difficult to endure. The name fits the story. So the stories about him because Durvasa was famous for his extraordinary quick temper. But there is a deeper theological interpretation. If Durvasa is regarded as an embodiment of Shiva's, Rudra's fierce energy, then his anger represents something more than ordinary. His anger could become a sharper or a curse, while his satisfaction could result in a var, or a boon. Was Durvasa born before or after Dattatreya? The Puranic account generally presents Soma and Dattatreya and Durvasa as the three divine sons of Atri and Anusuya, but the exact mechanism and sequence of their birth differ between texts. For example, the Markandeya Puran has a distinctive account in which the three manifestations emerge in a particular sequence, with Durvasa representing the fierce portion of Shiva. So it is better not to assign a precise chronological order unless we specify which Purana versions there is that we are following. There is a specific sequence. the significance of his birth. Durvasa's birth story explains virtually his entire personality. Atri gave him the lineage of the great Brahma Rishi. Anusuya gave him a spiritual heritage of extraordinary tapasya and purity. Shiva gave him the Rudra's fear and rage. Fierce rage, sorry. And therefore Durvasa became a sage who could simultaneously be extraordinarily powerful, extremely demanding, extremely quick to anger, capable of extraordinary blessings. This is also why the stories are often designed as tests of dharma. He would deliberately test kings, devotees, gods, and householders. The Shiva Purana explicitly describes Durvasa as testing people in matters of righteousness and gives the famous example of his testing King Ambrisha. We'll discuss about the curses and boons later. So, talking about the simple family tree, from Brahma came Atri. From Atri married to Anusuya. From Anusuya and Atri came three children, three sons. Soma is also known as Chandra, Dattatreya is Vishnu, and Durvasa Shiva. So if you want, okay, Maharishi was born to this is of the crux of what I've written. Let's go back. Now we talk about other stuff. So let's talk about the shapas, curses. Curses, curse to Indra. This is one of Durvasa's most famous curses, shapas. Durvasa received a divine fragrant garland which he later gave to Indra, the king of the Devas. Indra placed it on his elephant Airavat, which threw the garland on the ground. Durvasa considered this disrespectful and cursed Indra. Indra and Devas lost their strength, brilliance, and prosperity. This eventually became one of the circumstances leading to what? Can you tell me? So जो श्राप ये था कि सारे देवता श्रीहीन हो जाएंगे. तो इंद्रलोक श्रीहीन हो गया था और इस ही की वजह से समुद्र मंथन हुआ. So Vishnu Purana tradition specifically connects Durvasa's curse with the decline of Indra and the Devas. The lesson that we get from this: pride and disrespect towards a spiritual accomplished person can have enormous consequences. So be careful of people who are spiritually connected to the divine power. Then there was a curse to Shakuntala. That Dushyanta would forget her. While Shakuntala was living in the hermitage, she became deeply absorbed in thoughts of King Dushyant and failed to properly receive Durvasa when he arrived. Durvasa became angry and pronounced a curse, a shrap, that Dushyant would forget Shakuntala. Her companions pleaded with him, and the curse was softened. Dushyant's memory would return when he saw a token associated with Shakuntala. Traditionally, her signet ring. This episode became particularly famous through Kalidasa's Abhinana Shakuntala. किसने पढ़ा हो? अभिज्ञानम शकुंतलम, Abhijananam Shuntlam. Very famous, you should read. The curse associated with Saraswati. Some later traditional accounts say that Durvasa cursed Saraswati after she laughed at his recitation of the Vedas. According to this tradition, she was destined to take human birth. Important. The story. What is the importance of the story? This story is not as uniformly attested across the major Sanskrit texts as the Kunti, Indra, Shakuntala, and Ambrisha episode. So it is better treated as the latter tradition account rather than uncontested events of the Mahabharata. There was a curse to Rukmani. Some later traditions narrated an incident involving Krishna and Rukmani, in which Durvasa was displeased with Rukmani's conduct and cursed her to experience separation from Krishna. Again, this is not as consistently represented in the principle of early sources, and various and versions of the stories differ. Then curse on his wife Kandali. A traditional story says that Durvasa's wife Kandali repeatedly argued with him. In anger, Durvasa cursed her and said she was reduced to a heap of dust. This is again found in the later traditions to the Mahabharata. There is another curse of Bhanumati. Some traditional accounts describe Durvasa cursing Bhanumati, daughter of Bhanu, of the Yadu line, of after she offended him. The most famous curse to Ambarish. This one deserves special attention because it demonstrates something different. Durvasa's curse and anger ultimately could not overcome the devotion of King Ambrisha. राधे राधे चंदन जी, कैसे हो? बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत ही आपका आपका आगमन के लिए हम बहुत ही क्या बोलते हैं, अहोभाग्य हमारे कि आप आए। आप थोड़ा सपोर्ट कर दीजिएगा, हो सके तो घर के जितने फ़ोन है सारे लगा दीजिएगा। बच्चों को ये अंग्रेज़ी में कहानी सुना रहे हैं, हम दुर्वासा ऋषि की कथा सुना रहे हैं, क्योंकि ज़्यादातर जो दुनिया के लोग हैं वो अंग्रेज़ी सुनते हैं, तो क्या पता वो भी आए तो उनको भी समझ आए क्या है। पोस्टर थोड़ा ठीक नहीं बना, थोड़ा डिफाइन करना पड़ेगा, अगली बार थोड़ा सा उसको उसके हिसाब से करेंगे। अगली स्टोरी हम करेंगे दत्तात्रेय, तो साबी बने रहेगी। अभी तो चल रहा है, अभी अम्बरीश का जो श्राप है उस पे आए हैं, फिर कुंती को जो वर दिया था उस पे आएंगे, तो बहुत कुछ चलेगा। तो चंदन जो है हमारे साथ हमारे बहुत अच्छे मित्र हैं, हमसे बहुत टाइम से जुड़े हुए हैं, बहुत अच्छे मित्र हैं, ऑफलाइन जुड़े हुए हैं हमारे साथ। King Amrisha, a great devotee of Vishnu, was observing a religious fast. ध्यान से सुनिएगा। Durvasa arrived as his guest and went to bathe. The proper time for breaking the fast approached. Following the advice of his priests, Amrisha took a small amount of water so that he could technically complete the fast while still waiting for his guest. Durvasa became furious, believing Amrisha had dishonored his guest. He created a powerful destructive being from his hair to attack the king. But the Sudarshan Chakra, associated with Vishnu, protected Amrisha and pursued Durvasa. Durvasa sought refuge with Brahma, Shiva, and finally Vishnu. But no one would save him from the consequence of attacking Vishnu's devotee. Eventually, Durvasa returned to Amrisha and asked for forgiveness. Amrisha prayed for the sage's protection, and Durvasa was saved. Anybody who is tremendously powerful, aesthetic, maybe saint, should respect a genuine devotion and humility. Then some of the vers जो वर दिए इन्होंने, the great boon to Kunti. This is probably Durvasa's most important boon in the Mahabharata. When Kunti was a young girl, Durvasa stayed at the house of her foster father Kunti Bhoj. Kunti was given responsibility of serving him. Durvasa could be extremely demanding, but Kunti patiently fulfilled his wishes and cared for him without complaint. Pleased with her devotion and hospitality, Durvasa taught her a powerful mantra by which she could invoke a deity and obtain a child through that deity. Kunti later used it to invoke Surya. From Surya, she got Karan, Dharma, Yudhishthir, Vayu, Bhim, Indra, Arjun. She subsequently taught allowed it used by Madri, who invoked the Ashwini Kumars, resulting in Nakul and Sahadev. Thus, Durvasa's blessing is directly connected to the birth of the Pandavas and Karan, making it one of the most consequential blessings in the entire Mahabharata. Blessing to Krishna, a tradition recorded in the Anushasana Parva describes Durvasa visiting Krishna in Dwarka. After this, Durvasa ate the pious, that's खीर. खीर को बोलते हैं प्यासा. Payasa, Payasa, kheer, milk and rice, kheer. He instructed Krishna to smear the remaining proportion over his body. Krishna obeyed. Durvasa then blessed Krishna with extraordinary protection in the parts of his body covered with the kheer. The soles of Krishna's feet were not covered, which latter became the significant. You know, कि कृष्ण जी के पैर में तीर लगा जब उनकी मृत्यु, तो पैर पे खीर नहीं लगी थी, तो वो जगह हो गई थी. इस हमको इस कहानी से पता चलता है उनकी ओबीडियंस एंड ह्यूमिलिटी के बारे में. ब्लेसिंग एंड blessings connected to Draupadi. A traditional account says that Durvasa was once in need of clothes and Draupadi helped him. Pleased with her conduct, he blessed her that she would not lack clothing when she needed it. Some later retelling connect this blessing with the miraculous protection of Draupadi while during the dice hall episode. However, the connection between Durvasa's blessing and the famous endless clothing episode is not presented identically in all versions of the Mahabharata tradition. Therefore, it is the safety to describe this as a traditional account, rather than saying that every Sanskrit version explicitly attributes the event to Durvasa's boon. जो कृष्ण जी का वर था उसको, रिकी भाई कैसे हो, राधे राधे, कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय हरे परमात्मने प्रणतः क्लेश नाशाय गोविंदाय नमो नमः. दुर्वासा एंड द पुराणास. तो रिकी जी हमारे मार्केट स्पेशलिस्ट हैं. ही इज़ वन ऑफ द मोस्ट. इनका बहुत जल्दी एक स्पेशल एपिसोड आएगा मेरी लाइफ पे, जिसमें मैं इनका इंटरव्यू लूँगा और आपको मार्केट टिप्स मिलेंगे बहुत अच्छे. तो बने रहिएगा, आपको शॉर्ट सेल, इंट्राडे, स्टॉक मार्केट का पूरा ज्ञान इनसे मिलेगा. Durvasa Rishi, Durvasa and the Puran and the Pandava. There is another very important episode involving Duryodhan's plot. During the Pandavas' exile, Duryodhan pleased Durvasa and received a boon. Duryodhan's hidden intention was to have Durvasa visit the Pandavas at a time when they would have difficulty feeding the sage and his enormous group of disciples. Durvasa subsequently went on the Pandavas. This could have ended disastrously because Durvasa was notorious for being angry when guests were not properly served. However, Krishna intervened and the Pandavas were saved from Durvasa's anger. Rather than cursing them, Durvasa ultimately parted peacefully. So we'll have a quick reference to who all did Durvasa curse and gave boons. First is Indra. Indra was cursed as he disrespected Durvasa's garland, and it took away all the strength and prosperity that Shri of Devas. देवा का देवताओं की देवता श्रीहीन हो गए. शकुंतला. शकुंतला को श्राप मिला था as she failed to receive Durvasa properly, that Dushyant will forget her. माँ सरस्वती को कर्स मिला था बिकॉज जैसे दुर्वासा ऋषि जब वेदों का उच्चारण कर रहे थे तो उस उनके उच्चारण के तरीके पे माँ हंस पड़ी, तो उनको इंसान का रूप धारण करके जीना पड़ा पृथ्वी लोक, इस मृत्यु लोक में। फिर रुक्मणी ने दुर्वासा की बेइज्जती की थी, ऑफेंड किया था, और सेपरेशन का श्राप मिला कि तुम कृष्ण से अलग हो जाओगे। कांडली उनकी धर्मपत्नी उनसे लड़ पड़ी, बुरी तरीके से लड़ पड़ी, तो उन्होंने उनको श्राप दिया कि तुम मिट्टी हो जाओगी, धूल में मिल जाओगी, तुम मिट्टी हो गई, डस्ट हो गई थी पूरी। भानुमति ऑफेंडेड दुर्वासा, कर्स, उनको भी श्राप मिला था। अम्बरीश उनको लगा कि उनकी बेइज्जती करी हुई, उन्होंने अपना व्रत खोला था, तो उन्होंने उनको श्राप दिया, उन्होंने असुर प्रकट किया जो उनको मारने के लिए उनके, और सुदर्शन चक्र ने उनकी रक्षा करी। फिर उनको भाग के उन्हीं के पास आना पड़ा था माफ़ी मांगने, तो उनको माफ़ी मिली थी। कुंती ने उनको सर्व अच्छा किया था, तो उनको मंत्र दिया जिससे वो देवताओं को इन्वोक कर सकती थी, बुला सकती थी। कृष्णा ओबेड दुर्वासा's इंस्ट्रक्शन, तो जहाँ जहाँ पे उन्होंने खीर लगाई वहाँ पे उनको प्रोटेक्शन मिला पूरे शरीर पर। द्रौपदी कहते हैं कि उनको ब्लेसिंग मिली थी, उन्होंने दुर्वासा ऋषि को मदद करी, कब उनको पास वस्त्र चाहिए तो दुर्वासा ऋषि को मदद करी कि तुम्हें वस्त्र दी, तो उन्होंने उनको वरदान दिया था कि तुम्हारे कपड़े कभी खत्म नहीं होंगे। देन दुर्योधन को क्या था, उनसे खुश हो गए, तो उन्होंने कहा था, दुर्योधन को बोला कि उनके पास जाओ, तो वो उससे मान गए, एग्री हो गए कि हम पांडवों के पाके खाएंगे, तो उसकी वो बात में मानी गई, तो वो भी उसमें ही आएगा। अब बात करते हैं डीपर मीनिंग टू दुर्वासा's कैरेक्टर, उनके चरित्र की बात करते हैं। Durvasa is actually a fascinating paradox. He represents the enormous spiritual power produced by tap. But his stories repeatedly show that power without self-control can create suffering. At the same time, his blessing demonstrate that he could be extraordinarily generous towards people who showed patience, humility, devotion, and hospitality. The Kunti story is especially important. A young girl which is present with patience serving to the difficult sage ultimately gets a call. Then, in the entire course of Bharata is from one boon. एक वर से, एक वरदान से सब हुआ। फिर एक क्वेश्चन और उठता है, क्या दुर्वासा ऋषि अभी भी जिंदा है? In traditional Hindu understanding, Durvasa is a mythological ancient rishi, not a historical person for whom we have a इसके लिए हमारे पास कोई वेरीफाइड रिकॉर्ड नहीं है उनका, कोई कि उनकी मृत्यु हुई, कब हुई, कैसे हुई। तो अप्रॉक्सीमेटली सब कुछ टेक्स्ट कहते हैं वो जिंदा है, कुछ कहते हैं नहीं है। Some Hindu traditions regard great rishis as continuing to exist throughout external yogic powers as a remaining spiritual presence. Some places that are associated with Durvasa Rishi. ज़्यादा नहीं है, चार तीन चार जगह हैं. पहली जगह है आपका आजमगढ़, उत्तर प्रदेश. आजमगढ़ में दुर्वासा ऋषि का आश्रम है. दिस इज वन ऑफ द स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट modern pilgrimage traditions associated with him. The ashram is at the confluence of the Tamsa and Manjusha rivers. According to local tradition, by recorded by the government of Uttar Pradesh, Durvasa came from Chitrakoot at the age of 12 and performed meditation there. The site continues to receive large number of pilgrims, especially around Kartik Purnima. Second place is Kakra or Kotwa near Prayagraj. Another important traditional site is the Durvasa Rishi Ashram on the Ganga, east of Prayagraj. A cultural heritage document describes an ancient ashram there, including a large statue of Durvasa and a temple complex. Third is Farrukhabad, Uttar Pradesh. There is a present day Durvasa Rishi ashram at Panchal Ghat, Ghatia Ghat on the Ganga. The ashram's own site describes it as a traditional tapasya according associated with Durvasa, and says it currently functions as a religious ashram under the presence of a mahant. Fourth place is Pindara, Gujarat. Near Dwarka, the Pindara temple complex is traditionally associated with Durvasa. The surviving temple structure, however, are rare archaeological monuments dating roughly to the 7th to 10th century CE. So they should not be interpreted as evidence that Durvasa himself lived during that period. There's one interesting tradition, however. There are actually many places called Durvasa ashrams because different regions preserve their own tradition about where he performed tapasya. A modern site devoted to Durvasa traditions list Agra, Azamgarh, Prayagraj, Mathura, and Gujarat. Among others, these should be understood as sacred traditional associations rather than proven historical residents. There's an interesting traditional connection of the Nath Sampradaya with Durvasa Rishi, but it needs to be distinguished from the classic Nath texts actually established. So let's talk about Durvasa Rishi and Nath Sampradaya. The Nath Sampradaya is a major Shaiva yogic tradition associated especially with Matsyendranath Gorakhnath. It emphasizes Hatha Yoga, meditation, Kundalini, Guru disciple transmission, and the attainment of the spiritual realization. Durvasa is relevant because he is traditionally regarded as a manifestation of Shiva, Rudra. The Nathas likewise regard Adinath Shiva as the primordial guru, primordial guru. This creates a strong theological connection. Shiva, Rudra, Durvasa's lineage of figures, Tapa, and Nath traditions, Adinath Shiva. However, Durvasa is generally not connected among the standard historical lineage of the nine Naths and the 12 principal Nath gurus. The core Nath lineage normally certain on the figure of Adinath Shiva, Matsyendranath, Gorakhnath, Chauranginath, Jalandharnath, Kanipanthanath, Kanipa, and other Nath Siddhis depending on the particular lineage. Now, why Durvasa is sometimes connected to Nath Sampradaya, Nath tradition to be very specific. There are several reasons for which Durvasa Rishi is connected to Nath tradition. 1. Both traditions emphasize intense tapa. Durvasa is portrayed as a tremendous tapasvi, while Nath yogis are famous for prolonged austerities and yogic practices. Durvasa is associated with Rudra. Nath theology places Shiva, Adinath, at the beginning of the Guru tradition. Third, Durvasa is associated with Siddhis. Puranic stories attribute extraordinary spiritual powers to him. Nath literature likewise discusses siddhis arising through yoga. Regional traditions sometimes identify ancient sages with Nath siddhas. This is particularly important in India. A local temple of Akra, Akara or Akhada may preserve a tradition connecting Durvasa with a particular Nath lineage, even when the connection isn't found in ordinary Sanskrit sources. unable to move this. So move them in close. This might be the best way. Bang on. Just the ice cream. This section is actually pissing me off. Boom. Okay. Stuff. Let me just put it here. And I need one more ice cream here. Okay, boom. I've done this a couple of times. Boom. Boom. Ouch. 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 This can be itchy sometimes. It's bombastic. Okay. Some burgers. Burger. Burger. It's burger. Ham. Boom. 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 To 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 ba. Boom. To boom. To boom. To boom. To ta. Boom. Boom. To boom. To boom. To boom. To boom. To boom. Okay. Boom. To boom. To boom. Ta ta. To boom. 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 Dum 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 ta. Okay. Boom 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 boom. Boom 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 boom. Boom 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 boom. Boom boom boom. Boom 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 boom. Nothing is as nice. What the that one tangent pisses me off big time. It's a pain in my bum. Comida. Nothing is as nice, fine as paradise, like sipping on Bacardi, boom, boom, boom. Be what you won't be. This is a copyright आ जाएगा, sorry. Those things that I still become. I can't move this now. This edge, this is like on the extreme right of my screen, is being a pain in my bum because I'm unable to move it, unable to see the objects underneath. Okay, so move it here. Yeah, mambo, mambo Italiano. Oh, oh, oh. Mambo Italiano. Oh, oh. Mixed with the Juliana. Okay, okay, okay. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. It was closing and I missed the time out. Okay. Now what? There's no moving. No end. Play. Do it again. No other options than to play. Hmm. So, yeah. What? What? Why a single wire? Hmm. Stuck. I'm stuck now. Get this one eyed open. Do it again. Something magic now. How often? Options? Fuck space. Space. Better. Excuse me. Now, this won't budge. Good. Tickety tickety top. Tunka. 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 Okay. One. Two. One. Two. One. Okay. Bang. 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 What the? I'm getting so disoriented with something. Dum, 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 dum. It goes here. So, no. It goes here. Korea. Mm. But mm. Spice. What the hell? Mm. Okay. I move this. Mm, mm, bang. Now, Zona helped me a lot. Now, this section is going to irritate me a lot. So, you can't move this. This section I can't move. Now, can this move this one candle, pink candle? What is under this the mic? Can't tilt it. Try if I can tilt it a bit. Mm, okay. I can't tilt it also. These two candles I cannot move. I'm wasting my energy. End the game. Can't wait.